If you could 10x your income by changing one single habit, would you do it? There is one secret, it's not really a secret, that all high achievers know. There was a time in my life, going back more than 30 years, and the two things I cared about most were writing and judo. You may notice that part of what's absent from my list of what I cared about most was making money and my relationship with my girlfriend with whom I lived. Both of those caused some problems later on, but those are other stories. My life was great as far as I was concerned, right? My girlfriend Peggy and I, we lived in a community house, sort of co-op place. Our combined rent, our total rent was $500. That was it. And so what that meant for me was I could get by on not very much money. So between some babysitting, childcare, and shoveling snow, I really had like most of my days free for writing. So every day I would get up in the morning, I'd, do my little morning things, and then I would sit at my computer and I would work on writing, and it was either short stories or poems, and once a week I would go to my writing group. That was my big expense, $30 each time. It was totally worth it. And then during the weeknights, I would go to judo, either drive to Northampton, and I'd chosen to live in Western Massachusetts, the 5 college area, because it'd be so good for writing and for judo. And it was. So that was my routine. That was my life. I loved it. And periodically, I would go to Atticus Bookstore in the center of Amherst, Massachusetts, a classic place. Doesn't exist anymore. It's changed hands now. And I didn't have any money. So I would sit on the floor. One Saturday morning, I was sitting on the floor, and they were very sweet. It's a college town. They would let me sit there for hours. I would be careful with the books. And my writing teacher had been saying to me, you got to put your stuff out for publication. I was scared about that. I knew the stats, lots of, it's going to be rejection, rejection, rejection. So I was looking through the, what do they call it, writer's market, probably 1994, looking through there and looking at all the listings and places where you could submit and literary journals. And there was an interview with a Penn Faulkner Award winner, a writer by the name of John Edgar Wideman. And it shows you how long ago it was. And it was an incredible interview. And he'd grown up with a really interesting childhood and got into writing. And I was like riveted. I read this whole interview. I felt like I was transported into this other world. And then I got to the end of the interview. I was like, oh, he teaches at the University of Massachusetts, Master's in Fine Arts program. It was like a mile and a half from where I lived. And that was one of those moments. Have you had one of those where it was like intuition whacked me on the head? And it was, dude, you're going to join his writer's workshop. Right now, I had no invitation, no money. I was not a student at the college. I had no idea how that could work. But I just it hit, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I started looking into it, and I found out, hey, in the community, you can take classes at the university if you get approved. And it was like $500 a credit or something like that. So that meant I was going to have to pay $1,500 or $2,000 for this class, which I knew would be totally worth it. Masters of Fine Arts, one of the best in the country in their writing program. And he was obviously a legend. So I figured, you know what, if I get in, I'll figure out how to get the money. So how to get in? Well, it says, I call it the school, and they say you have to come to the graduate English department and apply. So I go. Takes me forever. Massive university, and I finally find the right building, and I get in there to the place. And by this point, I'm like sweating. This is in August of that year, and I'm sweating, and I feel like a like a kid from the other side of the tracks and all these university kids. And I was like 23. I was barely older than those guys at that point. In any case, though, and I get there and it's just before school starts. There's hardly anybody around working there. Students are just coming back. And the woman working at the office says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yes." And I said, "I'd like to take Dr. Weidman's writing class, writing workshop." And she says, "Well, are you a student in the MFA program?" I said, "No." She's like, looks at me like I have three heads. And she's like, "Well," I was like, "Well, I understood that, people in the community can take." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, here's how it works. You can go to the first class and you will submit a sample of your writing to Dr. Weidman. And if he approves that you are at the level of the students in the program, then he can allow you to be in the class." And she made it clear, let me tell you. And all right, let's be fair. I had all kinds of projections going on. I already told you, I was like, I'm the kid from the wrong side of the tracks. I don't belong here. So maybe I made up the whole thing, but I think she had some attitude like, come on, dude, you're not going to make it. You're not good enough. In any case, I said, okay, well, then that's what I'll do. And so I went home and it was like a week till the first class. And I worked on, a sample of I was writing a novella, a novel that was really a fictional account of my sister's suicide and all of that. And I went to the class. And on the day of the class, again, it took me forever to find the right building and then the right room. And I, classic, this is totally classic. I get there. And this is a graduate program. There are like 12 kids in the class. And I finally get to the room and I'm late at this point, rookie mistake. And I look through the little glass, rectangle window and I look in and I could see Dr. Weidman, who was a college level basketball player, a black skinned man. He's like, super tall and he's up at the front of the room. And I'm like, feeling like it. And I open the door right on cue, just as I push the door open. He's like, "I will be on time and I expect you to be on time." I'm like, oh God, the shame. And I come in and I sit down and I stay through the whole class and I'm like tripped out and he's talking. And I'm just thinking, I don't belong. What am I doing here? Shouldn't have come. Can I go? No, I got to wait till it's over. Get to the end of the class and he calls me up and can you see it? Maybe it's still there. I had a chip on my shoulder about this big because he says, "Yeah, what's going on?" And he doesn't know me. Nobody else there knows me. They all know each other, by the way, all these students in this exclusive program. And I said, "Well, I went to the secretary and she told me that I must bring you my sample of my writing. And if you deem that I am worthy, then maybe you'll consider letting me into the class." And he was so gracious. He received the paper from me. He's like, "Well, it's probably not quite as severe as all that, though. Yeah, it'd be a good idea if I get a sense of your writing." And so he took it and he's like, "So either way, come back next week and then, we can have a little chat at the end of the class." So I was like, okay. I felt like an idiot, but I walked out and decided I'll make sure I'm there on time the next week. And either way, I'm going to get to come back and it's possible, right? And I'm walking back to my broken down car across campus and thinking, how am I going to pay for this thing? Right. But, whatever. There's nothing I can do at this point. So next week class comes and I make it on time and I stay through the class and he delivers a really inspiring thing about writing. And if you can quit writing, then quit writing. But writing's really so, it's for those, if you have to, you got to do it. And it comes from the soul. And I was like touched and inspired, and class ends and all the other, students in the program leave. And then it's just he and I, and he was again super gracious with me, and he handed it back to me, and he's like, "Well, I looked through your writing, and there's some work that needs to be done, and really around your concept of story, and but there's some really compelling parts to it too." And I was like, "Ooh, really? There was?" And so he said, "Let me ask you a question. do you need to get the college credit for this course?" And I was like, uh, I wasn't even sure what that meant, but I was like, "Well, I guess not. I don't think so." Because it's true, it wasn't like I was trying to get a degree. I just wanted to do what I could to make my writing better. And he said, "Well, because it would be a lot easier for me if you're not getting the credit, then I don't have to register you as a student. I don't have to fill out any kind of reports." And so, and he said, "So, if you're up for doing it that way, then let's go." And so I said, "Okay, great." And so he said, "Okay, good. Come back next week." And he gave me the syllabus, and I was in the class. And what that meant, it wasn't until I was walking back to my car again that I realized that meant I didn't have to pay for the class, actually, right? I was just auditing it. I was just showing up. And holy moly, what a semester that was. So, how does this relate to you? The number one skill that most people miss out on that could 10x, 100x your income is built into the expression that the best learners are the highest earners. And here's the thing: if we want to grow in our value and our service in the world, that means we need to grow. We need to learn. And so, what does that mean is the most important thing to learn? What's the ultimate cross training, the superpower? Well, obviously, it is learning how to learn. So, part of why I'm sharing this with you right now is because after 20 something years of me delaying it, keep getting the inspiration, the push, it's time that I publish my book on the ultimate studentship, right? How to be the ultimate student. And the number one lesson in becoming the ultimate student, how to extract the most juice from all of your teachers and coaches and classes and mentors, is put yourself into their world, right? Get yourself as close to the best teachers you possibly can, right? Don't wait for an invitation. Don't wait for a sign, right? People stay stuck. They say, "Oh, I'm not allowed into that." It's teachers, and I know this because I've been a teacher for my whole life now, my whole career, 30 years. Teachers love when people are eager to learn. It's the least inspiring for a teacher is when people are just there to get the credit or move through the thing. So if you show up and say, "I want to learn from you," put yourself into their world, find the best mentor, say, "I want to learn from you." That's inspiring for them, right? And whatever it takes to make it happen, right? Without being pushy, being assertive. So, what does this mean for you right now? Who is there for you to learn from? Right now, I bet you it's in your heart and your head and both. Who, if you learn from them, if you become their student, right, their coachee, their mentee, if you become their protege, just being around them will not only inspire you, will educate you, it will change you. Find the best you can. Make your invitation to them. Make your case. Put yourself with them. And who is it? I would love to see in the comments or send me a message, right? I would love to know, who are you learning from? Who could you learn from? What would be your next level to learn even more effectively? And in the Ultimate Studentship Guide, what would serve you? What will help you to increase your income 10x by increasing your superpower of learning more? So y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here. I love that you love